Hi, Priscilla.
Hello, everybody. So
Hey.
are all these people whose names I'm seeing, are they listening to us talk?
Yes, they are.
Yes,
Yeah. Yes, they are, as well as everybody in Facebook land.
it's a little
So-
it's just a little pregame talking about how far women have come.
Well, how's my hair
Lovely.
It looks
great.
and my lipstick? Should I wear the
Yes.
hat?
Absolutely.
Can you see? I have
I
my
can see.
button. I don't think it can be seen. I wanted to wear the hat. I was tempted.
Well, I think I'll appear with it, but it's hard to see me if I'm wearing the hat. Fortunately, I don't have much to say today, so I don't have to say much today.
Let's see.
I have the.
Where's our music? We should have bumper music.
Well, that is done by design because I did not know this until I was trying to do my first live broadcast, and that was at one of the political rallies when Jill was in town, right? And so I was trying to go live with that event, and of course the music is playing very loud, and Facebook recognized the music as being copyrighted, so they cut me
Oh.
off.
Mm.
Well, I can provide you with uncopyrighted music whenever you want. You just let me know. I should have communicated about it.
That's all right. All right, let's forward one where Gabrielle is.
She's not coming until 4:30, right? She's
Oh yeah,
remember
yeah,
she
right.
had another meeting, so
That's right.
she'll be getting in as soon as she can. As soon as
That's
It is 4 o'clock.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
it is 4:01.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get going.
Hey, Jim Farmer,
Hey, how are y'all?
great to see you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alan,
Oh.
Bill, where's Wendy?
Not on yet. All right. Well, I'll do my best to monitor everything over here on the side. So let's get over here. Okay. Okay. Well, we are streaming live, so everyone should keep their language clean. And like I said, I will try to manage any last minute inquiries that come in best I can. Not too many have come in yet, but all right, let me get my windows here in order. Awesome. Okay. Well, for those that are here, thank you so much for taking time out on Super Bowl day. I have to confess that I did not check the sports calendar when this date was picked. It was primarily picked because of the current Georgia legislation or legislative session. So right now they are only a few weeks from their crossover day, and that is the reason that this is being timed at this moment. But we will get done before the kickoff, rest assured. So a lot of folks I don't know. My name is Patrick Kelsey. I am one of the founders for Georgians for the Arts, currently serving as its president and CEO. Just a quick few housekeeping things, hopefully to keep the experience here as enjoyable as possible. I'll be turning the chat off in between members. So direct all of the questions that you might have to me, the moderator, and I will store them and relay them to the speakers as time permits, and or until the very end if it's something relating to just Georgians for the Arts itself. If you're new to Zoom, I would recommend that you move over to the speaker view, upper right-hand corner of your image, so that you don't get everybody, including those that are off camera. Just a little bit of advice there. I do ask that, except for the speakers that are assigned at the designated time, please keep the microphones muted. And then if you do have any sort of speed issues, turn off your camera. It does have a tendency to speed up. I work for one of the local universities, and I'm on Zoom more hours than I really want to be. And I found out a few of those little tricks and hacks along the way. So this is the inaugural Arts Action Summit being presented by Georgians for the Arts. Over the years, there has been Arts Day, Arts and Tourism Day, roundtables, but this is the first time in recent years where Georgians from all four corners of the state have kind of been invited here to hear from some of the professionals talking about public policy, talking about where we were, where we are, and where we want to be. For Georgians for the Arts, this particular organization was formed in 2019. It was born out of a project that had been largely funded and ongoing through Arts Georgia since I think 2013. For a good number of years, Georgia Arts Network had been the designee from Americans for the Arts and their Arts Action Summit to serve on the State Arts Action Network Council, which means that they were at the time the designated representative to work at the state level on behalf of the Americans for the Arts. In 2019, Georgians for the Arts became that designee. So before I get too far into everything, I do have to share with you some very important information, and that would be my board. I think everybody here today we have, except for one. She is currently traveling. She'll be with us tomorrow, but I'll introduce to you Mirna Fuller and Priscilla Smith. They are both serving on the board. Abby Matei, who is not with us today, is serving as our secretary. Waduda Mohammed is serving as our treasurer. Julie Wilkerson is serving as the vice president. And then, of course, myself rounds out the founding board for Georgians for the Arts. So they are my rock stars. So with that, then what I do want to talk briefly about in terms of Georgians for the Arts, it depends on how much you've already gotten to know about us. Like I said, we're less than a couple of years old. You may or may not have heard a lot about us. This time last year in the Capitol Rotunda, we had Cultural Capital. Again, a lot of talent coming in. We set up shop there in the Rotunda and showed the legislative body a lot of the things that we can contribute to the state. Worked out very well. But then, of course, all things went to heck in a handbasket. So we had to reassess everything during calendar year 2020. One of the, actually, there's three main things that Georgians for the Arts is trying to get underway in some serious traction. And none of this can happen without you being on the social media, you being here at the summit, and you being anybody that watches this broadcast later. Number one, we are looking for 56 dedicated arts advocates. We have divided up the state into the 56 congressional districts to start with, so that we can have local captains to help us organize the individual artists and the arts organizations so that we have a good network for communicating. Very few states have good communication skills in terms of networking. I want Georgians for the Arts to be the pioneer in this. So we need people to help make the connections on the local level. Number two, membership. The only way this organization will have a nice, loud, clear, solid voice is if we have people to back it up. Membership can be free. Paid memberships are ideal. That alleviates having to find funds elsewhere, like American Express. But organizations, individuals will be happy to bring you on board. And the last one here is we do need help with content. We have quite a bit of content to work with. However, you're all creative people. You all have things to share. If you have things to share that you think will be of interest to people in the around the state, please contact me. We'll get you plugged in. You can help create some of that content, which then we can push out to the state wide and vast. A lot of you have come on board in the last 30 days or so as part of our first Georgia Creative Talents Art Competition. I think competition is kind of a loose term here, but we were able to achieve the objective here of providing an opportunity to collect a lot of really great content from Georgia's artists, seen and like. So if you were here before we began, you saw a lot of the visuals. You can also find the stuff on the website under the gallery. Two quick things. It's also in the book itself, but we do have coming up in April the National Arts Action Summit. This 2-day, very short summit is an abridged, super abridged version of that national summit. So that being said, if you attend that one, you're going to get a pretty significant boot camp about national national issues and the like. So
Why?
hold on one second here.
I don't know, to get information.
Let me go ahead and mute a few of you because you're not muted and this is being recorded. So Jim, and I think you're good now. Okay. Good, thank you. All right. Now, where was I? Now I lost my train of thought. Okay, so April National Arts Action Summit. Information is in the handbook as well as the Arts Georgia directory. So if you have space to share with your local community, please do. One last thing I will do, and then I will leave it to others for a while, is a quick tour of a couple of key features on our website that you should be familiar with moving forward. So ideally, you've already looked around a little bit here. We do have three primary tools. If you do want to share any opportunities you have statewide, please, as a paid member, you have access to post any opportunity that you want under opportunities. We will be keeping a repository of a lot of the public policy, arts advocacy type materials that will help you make the argument. A variety of links categorized by type, but the really important one here I want you to be aware of is the Arts Action Center that we have set up. And this is, hold on one second here, I'm having problems again.
You know, I got closer to Charlotte. I got to know what she's now jealous of my relationship with me. I fed up a lot. How come Edie gets it from my brother? How come Edie has so many stuff like that?
I don't know where that's coming from.
Well, Juliet wets the bed every night, so.
Bob Gar. All right, we'll take care of that now. Sorry about that. Arts Action Center. This is a very powerful tool that can be used. Right now it's going to be used at the state level. National Arts Action Summit, Americans for the Arts has one for the national level. But we can also take this down to a county level in time. Key features of this is trying to, well, first of all, most importantly, most of you will be added to this if you're not already added. If you're not getting any of the alerts, please go ahead and sign yourself up for this, because this is what we'll be using when there is a significant policy that needs to be influenced one way or the other with our representatives. Starting this week, there will be some of these that will go out. The first big one is maintaining funding for Georgia Council for the Arts and finding some alternative revenue streams, primarily through the proposed gambling bill. Digging down a little bit deeper here, I put my information in. You've all seen this before. You can find out your representatives. What's different about this is, number one, you can find out all of the contact information about any of these individuals. And even to make it easier, if you want to send a message to one or all of these, you go right ahead. It takes care of everything for you and makes it real easy. So you have access to this at absolutely no cost. Right now, Georgians for the Arts is monitoring a lot of the Georgia legislative action. This is the track legislation in terms of what's coming through without regard to its current status. To monitor that will be a prudent idea. But at the same time, we can drill down a bit deeper here and we can see exactly where specific Georgia legislation is in the process, whether it is or has been recently introduced, if it is currently in committee. Here in a few weeks, we'll begin to see a lot of legislation crossed over from the House to the Senate. So this is what's going to be kind of driving a lot of the alerts that will be coming out pretty soon. So we'll be tying back to this. We don't have any today, any campaigns. Again, this will begin this week to influence our legislation to take pro-arts action. Same way along with the petitions and other surveys. So look out for this down the road. Any questions about this, please type it in the chat or you can contact me at any other time. So I'm going to stop sharing and I am now going to be quiet for a while and I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed colleagues to move on to the next step. And that would be, who do we have? Priscilla, is that you?
Yeah.
Did I go too fast?
Yep. I'm not
Yeah.
seeing Gabrielle, so I don't know
Okay.
if I can introduce someone who's not here yet.
Okay. Well, we can skip up to or down to Julie. Julie, are you ready to present the data?
I can absolutely be ready to present the data. In fact, it goes a little bit with your showing of the website. I really do want to encourage everyone to, especially if you're going to be here today and tomorrow, to spend a little time looking at the website. That way, if you have some questions about it and how to use it, especially in that Arts Action Center, we'll be glad to answer your questions tomorrow. But it's a really great tool. You're going to learn today a lot and tomorrow a lot about how to contact your legislators, to speak with them and talk to them. But the website also gives you an easy out. You can share it with other people to just send an automatic message and also to follow legislation. So that if some legislation is pending that's important to you, then you can send a quick note to your legislator using that aspect of the website. What I want to talk to you about today is in the Legislative Handbook, which you all should have gotten. If you didn't, put it in the chat and we'll send you one for sure. I'm going to share my screen so that y'all can look at this little kind of economic impact guidebook. Starts on page 24 of the handbook that you received. First, I should introduce myself. I am Julie Wilkerson, and I am the Executive Director of Make an Arts Alliance. And as that, it is my job to advocate on the local, state, and national level for arts funding and arts-friendly policy. And I have been to Washington and I've been to Atlanta, and I talked to the mayor and our local commissioners a lot, and it makes a big difference in funding and in policy. So if you look at the economic impact, this information came from AEP 5, which is the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study that Americans for the Arts does every 5 years. This information was gathered in 2015 and it was published in 2017. There was supposed to be a new study in 2020. However, the pandemic has pushed that back, and hopefully they'll start in fall of 2021, or it may even be 2022 for the next study. I would encourage you, if your community does not participate in this study, there is a fee, but it's very important. it gives you great information that is drilled down to your particular county so that you can use it on the local level. Then the counties are compiled and it can be used on the state level. And then all the state information is compiled, and Americans for the Arts uses it in their national advocacy efforts. The first thing that you'll see is that arts and culture is 4.3% of Georgia's GDP. That means that we have, or is because we have 21,673 arts-related businesses operating in the state of Georgia, and they employ 129,386 people, or did in 2015 when this data was collected. And you can imagine that it's more now, especially since the film industry has grown so much in the last 5 years. Arts and culture is the third largest industry in Georgia. And that's something that's really very important to know. Retail is number 1, transportation is number 2, and arts and culture related industry is number 3. We are above construction and agriculture and education, which garner a lot of legislative attention. But it's important to remember that arts and culture is a larger industry than those 3. And if you're wondering what businesses or organizations are included in arts and culture, that could be art schools, could be design studios, graphic design, furniture design, industrial design, publishing, film, radio, and TV, museums, performing arts, visual arts, and photography. So any sort of arts-related business or arts-related nonprofit is included in the arts and culture industry. Core production, which is income generated or economic impact generated just by the business and the organization alone, has a $4.6 billion economic impact in the state of Georgia. And if you add in supporting production, which includes audiences, so obviously if there's a performing arts theater, their direct impact may be people they hire, things that that organization buys and sells and uses in the operation of the business. But when you add in the audience who's buying tickets, going to eat, spending the night in a hotel, all the ancillary things that are involved in entertainment, then there's another $19 billion economic impact. So I will stop screen sharing now. So you can see how important arts and culture are as an industry in Georgia. It's worth pointing out that as far as arts funding, Georgia ranks 49th per capita in arts funding. So we are generating a lot of production without being funded at a level that other states, including Alabama, is high. Everybody's higher than Georgia, except I think, is Kansas the one behind us? I think it is Kansas is the only state behind us. So Alabama spends more money, Mississippi spends more money per capita than Georgia. The last time I saw the figures, I think Georgia spent 12 cents a person. It really should be more like $1. One of the things that's important to us, we're going to hear about from Lee Thomas tomorrow, who's with the Georgia Film Office. But if Georgia is going to put itself out there as a creative state that wants to attract creative industry, it's important for us to be funding arts and culture, and so that we can actually look and feel like a creative state. So when we're going to learn some more about how to talk to legislators, which is very important. And some legislators are going to be more impressed with economic impact. Some legislators are going to be more impressed with quality of life. But I will tell you right now that the two are absolutely related. When a community is creative and is spending money on arts and culture, that attracts other business, not just creative business, but other business. So if you start on a local level, move to a state level and a national level, you can really see the impact that arts and culture have and can have on a community. And it's not just funding, it's also arts-friendly policies. And when we hear from Lee Thomas tomorrow, the film industry in Georgia is a great example of how legislative policy can encourage an industry. And that can happen on your local level, and it can also happen on a state and a national level. One other little thing I will tell you about advocating. In March of 2019, I went to Washington with a group of people for the Arts Advocacy Summit, and I do encourage you. They're doing it virtually this year, so the cost is very low. It's a very strong summit. You will learn more than you ever needed to know about what's going on nationally as far as policy, and then have an opportunity to contact your legislators. But one of the things we were lobbying for was the inclusion of artists and entrepreneurs, solo entrepreneurs in small business, being designated as a small business as far as disaster. After Katrina, a lot of artists had their homes and studios destroyed, and they did not qualify as a small business. So interestingly, and unfortunately, a year later, we were led into the pandemic, but solo entrepreneurs, 1099 contractors, and artists were included in the disaster relief, and were allowed to apply for unemployment insurance, and were allowed to apply for economic injury disaster loans, and even for paycheck protection loans if they were a sole owner of a business. I have a friend who's a videographer who got some PPP that provided about a month of work when she was out of work in April. None of that would have been possible before March of 2019, when the arts advocates descended on Washington and asked for that. It wasn't something that really cost a lot of money. There's a lot of policies that you can advocate for on the local level that will improve the arts in your community, but you're not asking the commission or the state legislators to spend money. So back to the website, if you watch that legislation that's pending, it's not all asking for money. Some of it's just asking for arts-friendly policies, and that is equally as important. So starting with page 24 in the handbook, you can read, if your community's participated in AEP, you can find that information on the Americans for the Arts website. It drills down by state and by county, and you can get your local numbers. In Macomb-Bibb County, the arts and culture industry is $18 million. We generate $7 million in sales tax revenue, $4 million for the city, $3 million for the state. And so every year when I go to the county commission to ask again for funding for Make an Arts Slants, I'm able to remind them that $3 million in state sales, in local sales tax, is provided by the arts and culture industry. So see if you can find out if your community has participated, and you can arm yourself with those numbers, and you'll be ready to go talk to your legislators.
Exactly.
Can I just add one little tidbit, just in case there's anyone on the call that isn't aware, and please back me up if you can, but it's important to know that Georgia's arts funding has been substantially cut about 10 years ago, I believe, by 80%. So the work that we're doing with Georgians for the Arts is that we're trying to first at least restore it to pre-recession numbers. And so, yeah, we lag behind, and we're 49 and we're 50th and we're 48 and we're 47, but we had more funding to work with, and we're still behind 80%. And it's only with more advocates and your help that we can at least get it back to and restore it to pre-recession funding, and then go from there. I just thought it was important that, just in case there's anyone on the call that isn't aware of that, that's what we're dealing with.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
We don't have Gabrielle quite yet. Hopefully she'll be here in just a moment. Along the same line, keep in mind that from the federal level through the National Endowment for the Arts, a large portion of the funding that they receive is required by law to be redistributed to the states. And of course, the states have to match that. Often states, I think the most recent one it might actually be Arizona right now that was, trying to get rid of their arts agency. Kansas has tried, South Carolina's tried. They usually regret it after they realize the ramifications. The nice thing is that right now here in the state of Georgia, we did have a small upset in the senatorial elections. Trying to work with both of the candidates, I know that they're firsthand that they are both pro-arts. So that when it does come time for the National Arts Advocacy Summit, those meetings will be a bit more enjoyable than many years in the past. So since I have just a moment here, I do want to share with you, and there's Gabrielle, I want to share with you a quick message in case you happen to have missed it when it first came out.
And grateful to Georgia for the arts and for our entire arts community for the support that I have felt throughout the course of this campaign as we join together to make history and, more importantly, to make a difference. Know that as I am running for the United States Senate, you have someone who understands the importance of our artists and our creative community, those who cause us to think beyond the narrow confines of our current reality and give us perspective on that reality while at the same time forcing us to imagine more. And so when I think about arts in Georgia, I think about the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, the High Museum. I think about the Fox Theater. I think about now what's called Hollywood in the South. And I think about the Savannah Jazz Festival. I also think about the young people who are being trained in our arts institutions like the Savannah College of Art and Design as they are fashioning a new generation of artists who are pushing us to imagine. And I can't think of anything more important in dark and difficult times than the ability to imagine. Sometimes when the budget is tight and we have to pull the purse strings, as it were, programs for the arts and music are the first to go. I think that's a mistake. I think poets, musicians, artists cause us to imagine more. And so we have to continue to support STEAM programs for our young people. We have to make sure that we appropriately fund the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities. This is such important work. The power of story, the power of a picture, the power of a composition that transports us to a different place, while at the same time situating us into our reality in a way that we see it from a different perspective. Art is revelatory. It is transformational. I think it's absolutely necessary and basic. So thank you so much for the work that you do, and know that I look forward to being a partner with you into the future. Long live the arts.
That was kind of nice. So, okay. We have.
I was using Google Analytics
hello.
and hated it. With a read.
So sorry. So, all right. All right. Back to you, Priscilla.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Priscilla Smith. I'm extremely proud to be a founding board member of Georgians for the Arts. I've been a performer and art maker and gadfly and arts educator and gadfly around arts education and politics for about twice as long as most of y'all have been alive. I'm a lifelong Georgian, and I've always been proud to be making work in my home, in my native home. And a quick word from me is I ran for State House of Representatives in 2020, and I might run again, who knows? But part of the reason I did it is because I think representation of all kinds of people in the legislature is important and should be done. And I want, if you ever even thought for a moment that you could be of service by serving in government at some level or another, but you are shy of doing it perhaps because you say, oh, I'm an artist, that's not what we do. Well, certainly it is. And so it's, you know, part of my new platform to encourage people to consider running for office, to those among you who know yourself to be leaders or have friends who are inclined in that kind of direction. The act of just running is important. And it was an incredible experience that there's a lot to be gained as an artist, and there's a lot to be gained as a human being. And I think there's a lot for our communities to be gained by artists trying to serve in that capacity. I'm here to introduce our keynote speaker. Gabrielle Mertz came to my attention because of her relationship with Stacey Abrams and the Stacey Abrams campaign in 2018. And then I found out, oh my goodness, what a resume she has. You'll have to look in the handbook that you have received or will be receiving. It's digital, but once you get it, you need to read her. It's far too extensive, and I don't want to take too much time away from what it is that she has to say by giving her an introduction. But she is a noted performing artist and choreographer. She creates site-specific installations. She's done work from Krakow to New York, to Atlanta and Japan. And she's done a lot of public policy work around culture and the arts as well. She's on the Leadership Council for Fair Fight and for Stacey Abrams. And I hope that we're going to be seeing a lot more of her. She divides her time around many places. I hope that we'll be seeing a lot of her in Georgia in the next couple of years. And we're extremely grateful and very proud that Gabrielle agreed to impart some ideas about some of her work and how it is that we can all be more engaged in advocating for ourselves as artists and understanding the importance of our work in the larger community context. Thank you so much for being here, Gabrielle.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Priscilla and Patrick and everybody with Georgians for the Arts. It's really such a pleasure to be with you all today and to have the honor of giving the keynote address for this event. And I do want to second what Priscilla was just saying about encouraging folks who are interested in running for office at whatever level to go for it. I think Priscilla is right. There's sometimes a sense in the arts that maybe that's a separate area and I shouldn't get involved, but I encourage anybody who wants to get involved in a variety of ways. And there's a lot of different ways, whether it's running for office or supporting people who are running for office or volunteering, right? There's lots of different ways to get involved, and really want to second that, that good thought. It was striking me earlier today that what we are doing here today is a bit of kind of an arts version of tailgating, that we're coming together to discuss and celebrate an industry that's such an important part of our lives, except the way that we do it is we play the game at the same time, looking ahead at the coming season. And we're used to doing this in the creative sector, right? Wearing multiple hats at the same time, having to think about the day-to-day as well as the big picture. But we don't always get the chance to come together in one place and really focus on where we should be going and how we should get there. And during this past year, this year that has gone beyond all the available adjectives that we have, one of the things that has persisted in 1,000 different ways has been the arts. In fact, despite the massive hit that the sector has taken economically and in so many other ways, not to mention on the kind of health front, more people than ever are spending time watching movies, listening to music, sharing photographs and videos and drawings, dancing and singing, reading books, seeking out art and creativity. And so it's a reminder that we know that even in the hardest of times, as well as in the happiest of times, the creative sector is central to the human experience. And we also know that the sector is one of the major economic drivers across the state and across the country, contributing more than 800 billion to the nation's GDP as a country and rising, employing more than 5 million people, pardon me. And we also know that, and this is from a country perspective, that this impact is 5 times greater than the agricultural sector. It's more than construction, it's more than transportation, right? A whole array of industries that we hear more about, right? In the political sphere, in the advocacy sphere. And we know that Georgia is a big part of that national picture. Georgia has become a powerhouse in the sector, and that capacity is expected to continue to grow even larger going forward. And the creative sector in Georgia already, we know, represents more than 37 billion in revenue, employs more than 200,000 people. And I'm not going to bore you with many statistics that you all are probably aware of, but just for perspective, the coal mining industry in the United States employs 53,000 people in total. That's in the entire United States. So Georgia dwarfs that in terms of the creative sector. And so if this is the case, that the creative sector in Georgia and across the country is hugely powerful from both an economic and a cultural perspective, why doesn't it feel that way? What has been happening? And more importantly, what are we going to do about it? And, you know, for too long, the creative sector has been told to limit its expectations in advocacy, to limit what is possible, to limit our thinking and imagination about the scope and reach of the advancement and influence of issues important to the field. And we have listened to this. We've internalized it and responded by expecting less and demanding less of our officials and leaders at every level of government and of the public. And I get it. We fought and lost some big battles in years past, particularly over things like arts funding in the aftermath of the culture wars of the 80s and 90s. And so many cultural institutions and artists and arts workers were already overworked and underpaid and struggling to survive. And so the rationale and the calculation was that if we just limited what we asked for, if we just asked for the bare tiny minimum and nothing more, if we quieted our voices and never challenged the misperceptions about the sector, maybe we could survive to fight another day. Well, that day has arrived. It's time to move forward. This sector is crucial to the health and economy of Georgia and the nation at large, and it's practically unmatched in its reach and overlap across every area that matters, from labor to infrastructure to diplomacy and international relations and more. So it's time for the sector to start acting like the powerhouse that it is. All of you out there and the organizations and groups and communities that you represent, artists, arts workers, arts organizations, creative sector patrons and audience members, you are an economic driver and you are part of the heart and soul of the state. The dream and imagination of what is possible, the store of histories and memories, and the future. In this most recent 2021 election season, the creative sector had an unprecedented impact in a whole range of ways. With Drawing Out the Vote, the project that I oversee, we reached more than 75,000 new, young, and irregular voters in Georgia alone by placing the creative sector at the forefront of our efforts, leading the way toward a historic election and turnout. And this was one of the most successful voter education campaigns and turnout efforts from the sector. And we did this working in partnership with so many organizations and artists, reaching not just voters, but also impacting policy discussions about the influence of the creative sector. So this is an important story that has yet to be told about the recent election season, that the creative sector had this huge impact to historic effect. And it's a harbinger of much more to come from this sector as it embraces its influence and power to create change. It shows how much is possible when we do the work, when we embrace the force that is the creative community. And we've always really known this, right? The capacity and power of arts to affect change. So I'm here today to say to you that everything is possible and the time to act is now. So I urge you to broaden the focus on what is possible and expand the scope. That means not just focusing on arts funding, which of course, it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, needs to increase multifold many times, even just to catch up with where Georgia is vis-a-vis other neighboring southern states. But this shouldn't be the sole focus of our advocacy and outreach. The creative sector should be speaking out about a range of issues that impact our field and the people and organizations in our field, and that are at the forefront of contemporary global issues that we all face and are just starting to wrestle with. We should be helping to lead the discussion on technology, privacy and copyright issues, labor in the gig economy, worker organizing, healthcare access, reform of the tax code, philanthropic structures, nonprofit NGO policy, and much, much more. These issues are absolutely central to the operation and impact of our field, and the impact is across the sector. Big and small organizations, artists and arts workers, donors, board members. So the arts should be leading the way on these because we are the industry that is one of the most impacted by them. And also because that means our expertise and specific experience in dealing with these challenges is invaluable. It's also time that we be bold in imagining or reimagining what is possible. It's time to have discussions about instituting major programs that advance the sector at the state and federal levels. I'm talking about things like the WPA in the 30s and CETA in the latter half of the 70s, among other kinds of projects. City and state programs that specifically and regularly integrate the arts and artists and creative sector into local government projects and artists in residency at specific agencies. This already exists in a few cities and states outside of Georgia. And again, these are just examples, but we should be expanding the scope of what we're thinking about and what we're asking for and what we're advocating for. And we should be bold. And we should also be joining together in building coalitions, not just within the sector, but beyond. There are other communities and sectors that we share much in common with, in vision, in goals, in issues, and we should be expanding who we reach out to and how we can advocate and align together. It's also important that we ask questions about our own field, about who has access, whose voices are not only invited, but heard at the table, and who gets to make decisions. And that may mean changing the way things have operated in crucial ways, and also acknowledging what has worked, what hasn't, and what we're gonna do to fix it. And creatives are actually well positioned to be able to do this if we make it a priority, to be innovators, to adapt, to ask questions, to not merely uphold the status quo, but build the new. The crucial part will be making sure that all of the integral parts of the sector and related fields, philanthropic, governmental, many others, are also brought forward in this process. So you already have the impact, the power, and the capacity to do extraordinary things. Start exercising it. Own your power. Make your voice heard. We can do this and we can do more. It's the start of a new era of creative sector power. The time is here, the time is now. So let's go forth and create change together. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Thank you.
Wow, that was incredibly inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very inspiring. I know I'm not supposed to be on mute, but I just had to say thank you very much.
We have a few minutes. Were we going to have time to do a little question and answer, Patrick?
Absolutely.
So if you would like to ask Gabrielle a question or address something that she had to said, can you drop it into the chat? And we'll see if we can get some conversation going. I have a start. That long list of things that we need to be operating on. Where else is that happening, and how can we plug in to what's going on? Do you have a recommendation about other organizations or other movements that where we can partner?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I'll give you the short answer and then the medium answer. The short answer is it does that sort of the network, right, of how you could just tap in, it doesn't exist.
Right.
And it doesn't exist because we haven't been able to build it, right? And
Yes.
and again, I feel bad. You're right. I charged you all with this huge list. And I know, again, everybody's overworked and underpaid and has a million things on their plates already. And so my one caveat is I'm not saying you have to take on the whole list. What I'm saying is think about the larger list, and maybe there's something within that list beyond just arts funding, which of course arts funding and other, but starting to expand the way we think about things and the way we think about advocacy, political power, and strategy. And part of it is also, there are, and I'm going to come back around to your question, but part of it is also about a strategic question. I encounter this all the time when I speak to candidates, government officials, leaders in the political sphere. They're used to 1,000,001 people in organizations coming to them on issues. And so if they don't, and even though it's annoying, in a way, you don't exist unless they see you and hear you often, right? Because there's so much noise.
Right.
And so there's also, one of the things that I battle with, and I feel like I've been battling for, my entire career on this issue, and we're just starting right at the very beginning, nascent part of starting to change this discussion. But there's a lot of misperceptions about both the creative sector as a whole, and I'm talking about from the political spectrum, how the political spectrum, and I would include government in that, even though I know those are not the same thing, but you sort of lump those two Venn diagrams together, how they perceive the creative sector. And amongst the many perceptions is one, that it's a one issue industry, and therefore it isn't really then an important industry, because every other industry has 5,000 issues they're bringing, right? And they hear from them not just when the NEA is up for, right? And so part of that is a strategic issue. And part of it is also because that our expertise in the creative sector is central to so many of those questions. And we are absolutely impacted by all of those and many more that I didn't mention. And so it really impacts cultural workers in the field and the creative sector as a whole if we get involved in those issues, both for our own sector and because that expertise really will have an impact for what is the best legislation, what is the best policy, right? That expertise and experience is invaluable, and we're being left out of that conversation. So back to sort of your question, which is that there isn't an existing good set of established connected networks for this. So part of it is about creating and building that. That's something that I've been involved in, and there are certainly some other people that are involved in, but it's starting to do that. Part of it is a direct level, right? Is one-on-one. You all are all here, or you wouldn't be if you weren't on some level advocating or being involved in advocacy at some level in a variety of ways. So part of it is just expanding those conversations that you have. Even just bringing up those kinds of issues and being aware of those issues is I think, the first step. And we've had discussions for a number of years about, and we've been doing this informally in the creative sector, but doing more formally, kind of a more formal expansion of an advocacy role organization. Because even at the national level, and there are great national level organizations, but they're limited too in sort of what they've been able to go after in terms of resources and time and staffing. And so part of it is, I think we're going to have to build that and create that. And I don't think it's about reinventing the wheel. There are some existing structures and things when I talk about coalition building that we can connect to and align with. But I think part of it is that it needs to be built. But part of it is, the first step is also making the case for it. I feel like we have really, not to make this into a group therapy session for the creative sector, but right, we have really internalized holistically this idea that we're the kind of underdog, right? And that we're like begging for scraps. And I think part of the first step, just like in anything, right, is acknowledging the problem and then and starting to make that change philosophically, so that we can then start say, okay, if we can make that or start to make that philosophical change, how can we then set up a system or a structure for us to act on that new way of thinking? And because it is a really interesting mismatch of, we are this incredibly powerful structure and sector, yet we perceive ourselves, and we've been told, we've received all this messaging in a variety of ways, that we're not powerful, right? And so part of it is to say, wait a second, this gap is not okay, right? And I don't mean to say that it's as easy as saying, well, now I believe, so everything's perfect. No, now you've got to convince everybody else, right? Because that gap exists not just within the creative sector, it exists within the culture at large, right? And in the political sector, right? They have that same gap. When I give the example of the coal mining, people are always mind blown, even politicians, because you hear about coal mining all the time. And this is not to knock anybody who's involved in the coal mining industry. It's just to say every single election, federal election we've ever had, there's significant discussion about the coal industry. Yet it's a tiny, tiny industry compared to, let's say, the arts industry, which dwarfs it. Why is that not part of every debate? Why is that not asked in every interview, right? So it's a scale question. And part of it is we've got to own that and then start educating this kind of larger sphere. So it's still early in that process, but I think though these are kind of these initial steps that have to happen for us to do that. And that has been happening slowly and in bits and pieces, but I think we need to do it in a larger way.
That was great. Thank you.
That was incredible.
I have a comment and a question. One is, I really like what you said, but it's interesting to me that as a creative industry, we don't always do a super job of telling our story. And I think that's what you're trying to say, is we need to tell our story. And we are the people who should be best at telling our story. So, what is it? Why aren't we doing that? And then the second thing is, when it comes to industry, it's here's retail, here's transportation, here's, education, here's coal mining, here's arts and culture. But arts and culture uniquely is a part of every one of those sectors, and weaves through all of that and can be used, it can and is used in healthcare. It's used in transportation more and more often, especially for traffic calming and pedestrian safety. And that's the other way that I feel like we need to think. It's not just saying this is the impact of arts organizations. It's saying this is how arts and culture affect community change. And this is how this is what we're doing to make our communities better, not just so that there are more performances to go to and there's more public art and people are happy, but we are enriching people's lives. We're in Macomb-Bibb County, we're tackling blight through creativity. We're tackling racial injustice through creativity. We're tackling poverty through creativity. And has really sort of, I think, people don't people outside of arts and culture don't always think about arts and culture as tackling those kinds of problems. And back to your point, we need to tell our story. So thank you. We needed that.
No, those are both very all well said. I had two sort of thoughts when you were, one is when you talk about sort of showing value and impact. One, the example, and I didn't go into super detail about it, but this, where I mentioned integrating artists and let's say artist fellowships into city agencies, there are cities that have done this, not a lot. New York does it, Philadelphia does it a bit. There's a bit here and there in a few other cities and states. But what they do, so what I'm talking about is where you build it in so that artists are actually employed directly, and they're, and whether it's through an application process or other kinds of processes or awards, right, where they're working directly with like the sanitation department, with, you know, right, whatever. And so they're directly embedded and they create projects that do exactly what you're talking about, which is look for how can, because I think artists are, particularly in arts organizations and creative sector, are good at both identifying problems that haven't been well identified or finding solutions to them in creative ways, right? And so that's one example, I mean, amongst many, but I think doing more of that and making, and part of that is making the case, because it has to be part, some of it is about budget, but some of it is not even so much about budget as getting agencies, doing the advocacy to go directly and talk to those agencies and say, here's why this would be important to do. And I've done this in Georgia and I continue to do it. It's, you know, an ongoing thing, but to make this case, because Georgia absolutely should have this system in place where, again, integration at certain state and local agencies, you have artists or creative organizations that are embedded in the agencies doing work or helping with work or working on projects that better the community and that have specific kinds of goals. The other thing I would say, and this is going to sound sort of counter, but just to be a little bit philosophical for a moment, I struggle a little bit just from a philosophical perspective about this idea of whether or not, or how much emphasis we should put on the proving that the arts does this, this, and this, because the reality is, first of all, we have made that argument for decades. And, oh yeah, some clapping. And so, and I agree, like, have we made it perfectly every time? No, but we have made that argument and it didn't change how things were funded, and it didn't. And I think, and this is not a fully formed thesis yet, but it's something I've been thinking about the past sort of decade off and on. And that is that, one, other industries that think of themselves as powerful, whether or not they really are, right, the scale issue, don't do that. They don't make the justification because the assumption is we have a right to live as a sector and be a sector. They're not doing the justification. So some of it is a psychology question of like, do we sound like we're trying to justify something which makes people think that we don't have a reason for existing as a sector, right? So that's one question. Just as again, I don't have an answer, so I throw that out into the philosophical void of kind of how to wrestle with that issue. But to your question about the story, I think that it's a particular kind of story though, right? And part of it is that I think the creative sector is good at stories and image and all of this kind of thing, but not good at political strategy. And that's a different story and a different thing. That's a very, very particular thing. And part of it is about lack of resources and time and all of those. But part of it has also been, I think, a philosophical outlook. Part of it is what I talked about, this issue of not thinking we were powerful enough, like to really have to think in a politically, strategically powerful way. And I think also part of it is something about creative sector sort of thinking that's not our wheelhouse and therefore that's someone else's job to take care of, and we just are going to make good work, and that, right, like cream rises to the top and people will fit, right, thinking we don't need to be engaged in that, or we don't want to be, whether it's subconscious or not. And I think that's unfortunately a mistake, right? Because if we don't do it, no white knight is going to, silver knight is going to step in and do it for us. We have to do it for ourselves. And so we do have to get involved in that political sphere and think about political strategy if we want things to be different, which I think we all do, right? Or better.
I could do this all afternoon, and I'm afraid that we can't. But I've got your phone number, so you better watch out.
Priscilla, we do have one question over here. Wendy has something.
Gabrielle, thank you. And I would, on the storytelling, and I've started calling myself or identifying, instead of saying I run a not-for-profit or I run a whatever, saying I run a business. I'm a business owner. And, you know, we all know as a founder or whatever that this is mine until I decide it's not, or I do something very egregious. So just saying I'm a business owner, and kind of, I think that we need that mindset, right? We need to start telling ourselves we're business owners. We are small business entrepreneurs, and that contribute to the economy. And for us, for me, that hire other people, you know, and put money in their pockets, and then they spend that, right? So I think as part of that storytelling, how we approach it ourselves, of saying I'm a business owner, and then going to legislators and saying I'm a business owner, and we need more resources in this field, in this sector.
Absolutely. And I think language matters. And I think there are ways also for us to both co-opt language and adapt it, right? To say, I'm a creative business owner, right? Right? Because I also don't want to hide, like, there's no reason, and I'm not suggesting that you were, but there's no reason to hide who I think we want to put forth the power of the creative sector. But I think you're right. I think language matters, and right. And that's part of thinking strategically. Especially in these kind of beginning stages of making this larger argument. So it's a very good point.
Awesome. Well, I think a large part of this is dovetailing exactly into what we are trying to do here with Georgians for the Arts. Nationally, they've gotten it down to a science. We'll hear from Nina tomorrow from Americans for the Arts, but I can't speak for my fellow board members, but we've all been to DC on numerous occasions, and what they're doing is spectacular. And you know what? It's not as difficult as it seems. And often I hear from my vantage point, when trying to generate more people to get on board with being an arts advocate, the myth is, I don't have time for it. We now have the tools, we have the resources that we can have, and we don't mind having a bunch of armchair advocates. We'll provide the letter. All you do is, you know, put in your name and click send. It can be that simple. But here in Georgia, we are not well organized. I know that. I've been here for 10 years. I know how disorganized it has been. And we are going to try to fix that. And the only way that's going to happen is right now, you know, per the reports, we have about 129,000 creative workers in this state. On our current mailing list, we have about 5,000, which is about 3.7%. Of that, we'll see about 0.07% of all of the creative workers actually opening an email. And I'm not going to go into how many zeros there are to how many will actually act upon it. So you're all here on a Sunday afternoon because you want to see change. You want to see change. When the time comes, take action. Most important thing that you can do after you leave here is to tell your friends, tell your networks. This is important. Stop opting out of communications. That's the only way that change can happen. Gabrielle, preaching to the choir, and then some. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
All right. I think Waduda, you're up.
Yeah. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Waduda Muhammad. I'm the treasurer and one of the founding board members of Georgians for the Arts. I'm an arts administrator and an arts advocate serving the Georgia nonprofit arts community for nearly 10 years. I served as a board member of Georgia Arts Network, where I served as the Georgia state captain, mobilizing over about 30 Georgia advocates to Washington, D.C. for National Arts Advocacy Day with Americans for the Arts. It is my honor to introduce to you Joy Young of South Arts. This is special to me in that I have had the opportunity to complete my graduate internship with South Arts. It is where I gained my knowledge of not just local and state arts advocacy, but regional and federal advocacy policies. Joy Young is the executive director and vice president of programs with South Arts since October 2020. Previously, she has served as executive director of the Cultural Council of Greater Jacksonville, Florida, I believe. She has served 14 years working both in programmatic and executive management roles with South Carolina Arts Commission, which is just a short list of her accomplishments and continued supports for the arts. South Arts supports artists and arts presenters in their 9-state service area, which includes Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. South Arts provides artist grants and fellowships, community and organization grants, programs, and conferences annually. Without further ado, I present to you Joy Young, who will be presenting on the topic of the Regional Arts Advocacy Report.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Let me offer just a bit of clarification. I am Vice President of Programs at South Arts. Susie Serkimer is our executive director, our esteemed executive director, who asked me to step in as she has had a personal issue with her calendar and just won't be able to join us. I wanted to also let you guys know I am pleased to be here with you on the Super Bowl Saturday afternoon. I look forward to talking with you about supporting and promoting the arts in Georgia and in the South, particularly during this challenging period for all of us who are arts makers, we're presenters and advocates. Thank you, Gabrielle, for launching this discussion with such gusto. Let me also say to Patrick, thank you for hosting this event and for inviting us. It's an honor to be on this program with so many folks who are friends of South Arts. I'm looking forward to learning more and being here with you for the rest of this day's events. Today, I'll talk about what we're seeing here in the South related to the arts. But first, let me take a moment to introduce or reintroduce to you South Arts. Waduda offered information about who we are, where we serve. And so what I'd like to do is to share, again, a bit more. A lot has changed with South Arts over the past few years. We are in a period of rapid change and growth. We are broadening our reach into new artistic disciplines and communities. We are introducing new programs and we are more nimble than ever. We are responding quickly to changes in our cultural environment, like the current pandemic. I'm going to give you a quick overview again of our mission and our goals, and then tell you briefly about our programs. There is a slide show that should go along with this, so hopefully we can get that up. Along the way, perhaps you'll see some programs, some activities we're doing that will make you want to reach out to South Arts for more information. One of the things some of you may not know is that we are headquartered in Atlanta, so we're all practically neighbors. So our mission, At South Arts, our mission is advancing Southern vitality through the arts. We believe that the American South has a distinct and unique culture arising from our complicated history. Our blend of ethnicities and our shared experiences are what make us unique. We use the arts to celebrate where we've been, but more importantly, we use the arts to help create our path forward together. At South Arts, we believe the arts and the opportunity for all people to benefit from the arts have the power to build stronger communities and a more vibrant, successful South. South Arts is one of 6 regional organizations around the country, and as you've heard, we work on behalf of 9 Southern states. In those states, we create a platform where the states can come together to address common challenges and opportunities, collaborate with one another, and amplify our work within the region. And I'm sorry for that. Our Sunday supper sounds like has some burning issues going on. Give me just a second. How funny. But all is well here. So, South Arts, we look for opportunities to provide programs and services that individual states may not be able to do on their own, and that are likely to advance the arts for the entire region. We're committed to serving all parts of our region, not just the big cities, but also the rural parts of our country. Here's how we frame our work within our current strategic plan. So the next slide talks about our strategic goals, and those goals are all about raising the visibility of the arts in the South. We work with artists and arts organizations to help them more successful. We connect and convene people, organizations, and resources to one another so they can do their work more collaboratively and effectively. We try to understand the needs of our Southern communities and show them how their challenges can be addressed through the arts. We build partnerships that help us find the resources and connections we need to advance Southern vitality through the arts, like our partnerships with the National Endowment for the Arts, state arts agencies, and numerous national and regional foundations. And we represent the South at the national level to make sure Southern arts and artists are at the table of national conversations. Now, funding for arts organizations. Let me tell you a little bit about our programs and funding opportunities at South Arts. These funding opportunities are available to all of you on the call. We work with organizations like community cultural organizations, colleges and universities, libraries, museums, performing arts venues, and on and on. We also have grants for community engagements. You'll see that most of our grant offerings at South Arts go into Southern communities. We want to ensure that Southern communities can access the arts for their ability to foster meaningful engagement with art and with artists. Our performing arts touring grants support community performances by Southern artists in theater, opera, and dance. Our traditional arts touring grants promote the appreciation of the traditional arts in the South by supporting community residencies with traditional artists and folklorists. And if you recall, Gabrielle talked a bit about how residencies in communities can help build relationships between arts and our communities, artists and our legislative bodies. Express grants offer quick turnaround funding for organizations and small communities that want to book a performing artist, as well as host literary, visual, or film artists. And our cross-sector impact grants allow arts organizations to partner with non-arts groups for projects that address community issues like arts and literacy, arts and the environment, arts and healthcare. Again, we've heard and we know about the role of the arts in community and the role of the arts for power for good in community. And South Arts provides this kind of funding. We also provide professional development. At South Arts, we value equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. So we were excited to offer our first cohort of Emerging Leaders of Color, a program for arts administrators and cultural workers here in the Southern region. Our Emerging Leaders of Color program provides professional development and team building for participants at no cost. And we are so glad to have finished a cohort with 12 emerging leaders, and we're now planning to launch a second round. We also offer professional development and artist planning grants to support staff development for arts organizations just like yours. And in light of COVID, our funding can be used for virtual professional development, especially in this age of social distancing. We often offer scholarships for important conferences and training where we feel Southern arts organizations and artists will benefit from participating. The work that happens in Washington, D.C. can be funded through our South Arts grants. So when we get back to our face-to-face convening in Washington, be sure to tap into those scholarships. One activity we have coming up at the end of February is the Creative Placemaking Leadership Summit. And I'll say more about that in just a moment. But let me now talk about some of the opportunities that support individual artists. The Southern Prize and State Fellowships Program is a competition showcasing the best of visual arts here in the South. There is an application and a panel process, but out of that, one visual artist from each of our 9 states is named a state fellow and receives a $5,000 prize. And of those 9, we have one person who's named a Southern Prize winner, and that winner receives $25,000 as a cash award. The runner-up receives a $10,000 prize. Our website can give you more information about who those 9 Southern visual artists are, and take a look at our website to find out who represents Georgia. We also have opportunities for individual artists to open up their career through what we call the Individual Artist Career Opportunity Grant. And it allows artists to take advantage of potential career-changing opportunities like participating in a major exhibit or presenting or performing work at a renowned festival or event. So while we do have programs that involve grants, we also have programs that engage Southern communities with the arts, such as Southern Circuit, which is a program that tours independent films. We bring together filmmakers in Southern communities. Community screening partners help curate films, and they host question and answer sessions with filmmakers. This year, we have Georgia screening partners in Hatfield, Statesboro, and Oxford. And while we're all social distancing, the screenings and the question and answer sessions are happening online. So again, visit our website to check them out. We have 2 programs focused on dance for presenting and touring, modern dance and contemporary ballet. Our dance touring initiative works with Southern organizations to improve their capacity to host modern and contemporary dance performances, including professional development grants and convenings. Most recently, with our program called Momentum, we have worked with 5 Southern modern and contemporary ballet dance companies to increase their touring capabilities. When our artists are touring again, our hope is that organizations in the South and beyond will be interested in presenting these amazing dance companies. And during this time of COVID, these companies are exploring new ways of interacting so that after COVID, they can engage in better ways with communities. Our programs, some are major, some not so major, but all are the result of partnerships. So I'll share some information about our programs that are a result of partnerships with regional and national funders. In these mountains is a partnership with the Margaret A. Cargill Philanthropies and our state arts councils in Kentucky, Tennessee, and North Carolina. This program works to preserve and promote folk and traditional arts of Central Appalachia. We offer fellowships to master artists, support apprenticeship programs, arts education, and documentation and scholarly research about and around Appalachian arts. Another major program that happens in partnership is Jazz Road. And this is a national program. All over the country, we are sending jazz artists, and we're doing this with partners like the Doris Duke Charitable Trust and the Andrew Mellon Foundation. Jazz Road is a touring and residency program to promote jazz throughout the entire country. This program works to strengthen opportunities and strengthen compensation for jazz artists. Our goal is to bolster deeper engagement between jazz musicians, presenters, and communities. Now, if you recall earlier, I talked about the Creative Placemaking Leadership Summit. And this is our annual regional conference in the South. The summit brings together arts and community leaders to show how arts, culture, and creativity can offer solutions to community challenges. The next summit is February 23rd and 24th. It is virtual, so be sure to check out our website for more details and perhaps go ahead and get registered. Another program is Arts Ready, and it's an online resource to help arts organizations engage in crisis planning and management. And speaking of a crisis, COVID, I just want to take a moment to tell you what South Arts has been doing to help the arts community in the South during this time of pandemic. I don't have to tell you that the arts are suffering mightily during this time. Restrictions on facilities, gatherings, and events have struck at the core of how we perform, how we create, present, and operate. In response to the pandemic, South Arts has implemented 4 new programs. In partnership with the Doris Duke Foundation, we launched Jazz Road Quick Assist Grants. And this program provided relief for jazz artists impacted by COVID-19. We've assisted over 450 artists nationwide with grants to help them through this difficult time for performers. As part of the Federal CARES Act, through the National Endowment for the Arts, South Arts distributed over $725,000 in arts relief and sustainability grants in the South. Most of this money was distributed through our state arts agency partners to rural arts and culturally specific organizations. We also sent funds to arts service organizations that provide statewide service to the arts sector. By doing this, we were able to further expand the reach of these funds across each state. One thing this pandemic has made clear is the arts sector needs to do more thinking about how it can be more resilient in times of crisis. To help make progress in this area, South Arts, along with the nation's 5 other regional arts organizations, partnered with the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation to implement the U.S. Regional Arts Resilience Fund. We awarded $1.67 million. So that's $1.6 million in grants to support organizations with deep impact across their states in the region, with the emphasis on under-resourced organizations, populations, communities, and art forms. Some grant recipients you may recognize from Georgia include Alternate Routes, Burn Away, the Savannah Music Festival, True Color Theater, and others. These grants will allow arts organizations to reimagine their work and increase their resilience and sustainability during this time and during other times of crisis. We've partnered with the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts to showcase Southern artists in their Arts Across America series. South Arts identified performers from the South for 10 one-hour performances, which were broadcast through the Kennedy Center's online platform. This has been a fantastic opportunity to showcase Southern artists to the Kennedy Center's huge online art audience during a time when live and in-person concerts simply are not possible. So what are some observations we've made during this time? So to respond to Patrick's original question and original reason for inviting South Arts to this conversation, you know, what have we seen? What has been going on? Americans for the Arts and other organizations have been gathering data, and I am sure Nina will have more to share when she speaks to you tomorrow. Our impressions come from conversations we're having with our grantees and state partners in the South. Here are just a few of those impressions. So contrary to some of the expectations at the outset of COVID-19, we're actually finding that most of our southern states here in this region are not experiencing severe budget cuts because of the pandemic. As I stated earlier, the National Endowment for the Arts has sent funds directly to states, and the South Arts, as one of our regional organizations, is also granting out. So most of our state arts agency partners are expanding and are expecting stable budgets for fiscal year 22. This is great news, and I'm confident that Pam Bro from NASA, the National Association of State Arts Agencies, will provide more insights about national trends of other states. We've watched artists and arts organizations get more innovative and sophisticated about offering their work online, primarily as a means of maintaining relationships with their audience. They have been less successful in using those online offerings to generate revenue. But what we know is that this is a time for exploring new models of working, being innovative about partnerships, collaborations, thinking differently about what community engagement means, and broadly thinking differently about what engagement means. What we're seeing is that many larger museums and galleries have been able to reopen with safety protocols in place. And while many performing arts venues remained closed, we are hopeful, and we see that the federal COVID relief packages are helping these shuttered venues. We're also seeing that presenters appear to be pushing their planned seasons into next year rather than booking new seasons. Of course, that has an impact on artists trying to gear up their plans for returning to exhibiting, performing, and touring. So the kinds of advocacy needed are really around how we help our individual artists, or as mentioned earlier, our micro entrepreneurs. One recent study shows that the South remains generally more optimistic than the rest of the country about reopening arts venues, with more than half projecting reopening in some fashion by July 2021. Overall, what we are seeing is that artists and arts organizations are using this time to examine their operations, to examine their artistic product and their delivery systems. They're thinking about how to move forward when things ramp up again, and thinking about how to work differently in this new environment. We can't expect to return to the way things were only a year ago. I don't know that we can ever expect to return to the way things were. But the real question is, how will your work, how will our work and operations be different? And we hope, as we look to the future, being more successful in a post-COVID world. And so here's the question, how will your work be different? So thank you for your time and attention and having me here in the place of Susie Serkimer, our executive director. I want to invite all of you to visit the South Arts website or contact me or Susie or our program directed staff via phone or email to learn more about our programs and services. We'd love to talk with you more about ways to work together to advance Southern vitality through the arts. Now, I don't know that I can be as dynamic as Gabrielle was in answering your questions, but I'll be happy to share what I know, what I'm learning, what I've heard, and engage in any discussions you'd enjoy. So, any questions?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joy, for enlightening us. And I always think that a lot of folks don't know the number or the extent of the resources that South Arts actually provides. I had first come in contact with South Arts back in, I don't know, 2008 or 9 when I was in New York, so not even in your region, but you were doing a lot of beta testing with Arts Ready. And you know, catastrophes don't have any boundaries. So, but that was quite the platform that was created for you know, crisis management and stuff. I do have one question here in the chat box. Can you speak to the advocacy or legislative processes that South Arts is involved in, and how does funding at the state or federal level affect what South Arts is able to provide? How important is it that individuals advocate locally?
So I'll start with the latter first. It is incredibly important for individuals to advocate locally because that's where the real work is happening. What we at South Arts engage and how we engage our regionals is around how the collective body builds vitality. And so the work that happens, for example, in these mountains program, where we have 3 states that are all touching the Appalachia region, lift the traditional arts, allow us then as South Arts to begin conversations of developing additional resources in a regional way versus just a single state. We think there are numerous regional opportunities for funding. So let me give you an example. Currently, there are no regional structures for funding. Each state pretty much operates in its own silo. Our work at South Arts is about bringing together funders to work on a regional scale. So again, the Margaret Cargill Philanthropies, the Mellon Foundation, the Duke Foundation are examples of us leveraging regional funds to build into the states and to deliver to the states for programming. Another thing I think is just important for you to know is that South Arts does interface with the National Endowment for the Arts, and that direct conversation with the National Endowment for the Arts allows us to speak to trends here within our southern region, and having the ear of the NEA and having the ear of Americans for the Arts, having the ear of the NASA, our Association for State Arts Agencies, allows us to hear about the trends moving upwards as well as downwards. So we like to think that as one of 6 regional arts organizations and working with our states, that we are both a conduit of information up to the nation and down into our states but we working definitely collectively for bringing Southern vitality to this region.
Great.
I think another thing that many people don't realize is that each member of a state arts agency is represented on our board. And so many discussions happen about, well, what is your state doing? What's happening with your state? So there is discussion, and each state understands what's happening in the other, and they then inform our work.
Awesome, thank you. Miss Julie has a question.
I do. I'm giving a shameless plug for the Creative Placemaking Summit. I will say, I'm going to tie it in though. The South Summit was supposed to happen in Macon last spring, but COVID undid that for us. And so we have been working on the virtual summit, and it's been combined with the Appalachian Summit. So if you register, you've got an opportunity. You can do you can do an Appalachian session, or you can do a South session. So it's really twice the summit and much less expensive. The other thing is, this is a great place to learn about, just because I've been on the planning committee, I'm aware of, and actually you can look at the South Arts website and see who the speakers and what the programs are, but it's a good place to go to find what a lot of communities, what a lot of arts organizations and artists are doing in communities to affect community change, which is a lot of what we were talking about with Gabrielle as well too. So that's my shameless plug.
Thank you, Julie. And just to riff just a bit on Julie, if you don't mind, after the summit, there will be ongoing discussions through chat rooms. So even if you can't participate in the summit itself, you can network and interact and hear other discussions about how creative placemaking is happening in communities throughout the South, to include rural Appalachia. So thank you, Julie, for sharing that.
Awesome, awesome, thank you. I don't see any other questions in the chat, I don't think. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here.
I have a very simple, mindless question, if that's okay.
Yes.
Joy, in terms of the Southeastern region, how do you feel that Georgia, minus the stats and the data, based on just your information, how do you feel that we are positioned in Georgia to kind of propel the arts industry? Yeah.
Yeah. So the one thing I will say is that with the community growing, with your community of advocates growing, with your new political position, if you will, with friends in the White House and in the House and Senate, I think that from a national perspective, the visibility of Georgia has increased tremendously. As far as the arts and artists in Georgia, you have a dynamic arts product, if you will, from your film, your regional arts organizations, and the individual artists across all disciplines and all genres. I think what you have is a product that is indeed world class, to the point of sharing your stories, to the point of speaking about what happens in the arts, not just with a hand out, but to speak to the broader vitality that the arts bring to the state is definitely a conversation to have. It's not just about the economic value. We do talk about our numbers quite a bit, but it's also right now the social value of the arts, and how the arts can be and are part of the very fabric of our communities. So when asked, what do I think the prospects are? The prospects are nothing but looking up. Tourism, we might not get back to tourism, but opportunities for film, opportunities for media, opportunities to use our global platform, which is the World Wide Web, to tell the story of what's happening in the arts for this state. The sky is the limit, and now is the time to strike when people are engaged online, when people are eager to hear and to see something new, and when we are questioning, and there's nothing wrong with questioning the status quo. So I'd say tell the stories. Again, the sky is the limit, and other states, to compare other states, I don't think is fair, because Georgia has its unique voice and its unique position, and that is what you should speak about.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. Let's see if I have any other questions lined up here. I don't see anything. We did have on her slides in southarts.org. You'll also find the same information in the handbook that you have access to. So that being said, Joy, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule today, especially with the pre-show prep. And thank you. Thank you. Have yourself a great day.
Thank you.
Let's see here. I think we are coming towards the end of day one. And I think, Myrna, you're going to close us out?
I am. Well, this has been an exciting day. And I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. So I hope that you all will spread the word to have other people sign up for tomorrow. Just have them go to our website to do that. I haven't introduced myself. I'm Mirna Fuller, retired executive director of Hammond's House Museum, with really an ongoing desire to support and remain involved in the arts community at all levels and in various capacities. My career within the arts of Atlanta goes way back. I've served on many boards, worked with the National Black Arts Festival, was on the board back when the Arts Festival of Atlanta existed. So I love the arts, and it's a joy to be working with all of you. I want to thank today's speakers, Gabrielle and Joy, for providing insights and information useful in helping to set up pathways to achieve successful advocacy. I also want to thank our Georgians for the Arts board members who introduced the tools and the reference materials that now are at your fingertips to access, inform, and guide your process. We would not be at this point of development for this organization if it were not for the board members that you are seeing today, and in particular, the leadership of Patrick and the vision of Bill Gentilette. Last but not least, a huge recognition and appreciation goes to you who took the time to attend the summit today, and we hope tomorrow, knowing what's at stake for the arts if we do not activate strategy with real action. As Gabrielle stated, we need to own our power. The bottom line is we need numbers. We need messages taken from our speakers, to use as an example, and we need the tools that are available to us through tools that you heard about today, as well as working with organizations such as South Arts, and there are many more. And just taking those into consideration means nothing if we don't have mass advocacy action. We must enlighten as many people as possible to join this effort. In addition to the inspiration and the tools discussed in the summit, and what our organization has to offer, we have one more, I want to say, trick up our sleeve that we know that you can use if you're really serious about being an advocate for the arts. And that is that we will offer a one-on-one mentorship opportunity to help you communicate with your elected and appointed governmental officials. I mean, you can't beat that. So no one can say, hey, I don't know how to do it. I'm afraid to do it. We will help you. We're here to do just that. There are no excuses. Georgians for the Arts also has a free, you hear me? You can't get better than free membership available to anyone who wants to add their voice to making the arts in Georgia improve its national position. That particular level is called the Arts Advocacy, or I'm sorry, Arts Advocate level. You can find it on our website. We also need what? Financial support for programming and administrative items. And those items you can tell by the fact that we're putting on this summit today. And when you go to our website and you see all of the other resources available, we need your financial support for programming and administrative items. To assist with this need, we have 5 other affordable membership levels in various categories. These levels allow you to pay at any rate of your choice. So again, there are no excuses. You could start paying $5 a week if you want. And all of the levels, all of the 5 levels are affordable. So please go to our website to see what they are, see which one fits your needs. Last, we need your help in completing a short evaluation consisting of 4 or 5 questions, which will be sent to you after both of the sessions are complete. By the way, we will also send you a link to access this recorded session, as well as any other questions that come up tomorrow or that we might not have answered today that you want to add to the chat room right now. They will be posted on our website, as well as we will send you a link letting you know when those items are available. Of course, we hope that you will join us tomorrow and invite others to do so as well. Registration is still available on our website. So as I close out the session, again, it's been a pleasure having you with us today, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 3. Tomorrow's session is from 3 to 5. Patrick, did you want to add anything else?
The only thing to reinforce is that tomorrow is going to be a jam-packed session. You thought today was jam-packed. Tomorrow is going to be even more jam-packed, if it can be. Do spread the word. All are welcome. No one's going to get turned away. So share, share, share. Hopefully we'll have a full house tomorrow. And beyond that, I think that's going to conclude day 1 of our summit. We're just a few minutes ahead of schedule, which is a great thing. If anybody has any questions, not for the speakers, but for the board of Georgians for the Arts, now would be a fantastic time if you want to share them. And I know who was this? Samantha, you had a point here that you wanted to make. You want to bring that up with us?
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Well, greetings from South Georgia, way south, Valdosta. We all have what? Okay, good. One person. We all have websites, and most of us have websites, and it really be nice if we're going to have a collective voice, something that is unified. It'd be nice if we had something that we could post that's branded, across our areas, so it looks the same. So, for example, I could, on my website for the Turner Center for the Arts here in Valdosta, I can put something, one little navigation bar that says support the arts across our state, and then list these facts and list, who to contact or who the legislator, what to, a standard letter to send to your legislators. But maybe we could all do that across our websites, have one designated page that has the same information, and somebody guides that information so that we're not really all going off in our own way. What do you think about something like that?
It would not be particularly difficult. Right now, right now, the platform that we have on our website, it's a two-pronged approach. One is called Voter Voice, and the other one is Bill Tracker 50. Between both of those, that's what we have available. One can be free, but you don't get the the daily insights and stuff. Both of them do cost a little bit of money, and that's what the Georgians for the Arts is one of the things that we're currently paying for, among many others. But what could easily happen is creating that, I guess you could call it badge, if you will, to place on one's website, pulling everybody back to kind of home base, so that we are all working off of the same platform and not having to recreate the wheel, because that's exactly what's happening at every level, is at the county level or just the regional level. You have your interests, you focus in on your interests. A lot of folks will head up to the Capitol and lobby their representatives, but your voice, it's a gnat to them. However, when you have a lot of other voices, backing you up, it's a lot harder to ignore you. But that should not be particularly difficult to implement. It was already designed to be part of the organizational membership, but there's no reason why it couldn't be expanded a little bit more. And that could be something too that I could have in place probably by the end of the week.
Can I ask?
Wow, you're rock star.
No, go ahead.
Really?
No,
I'm done.
Well, in the interim, I think the easier solution, if you're not already following Georgians for the Arts on our social media platform, on Facebook and on Instagram and on Twitter, all of the messaging. So if you're following us on our social media platform, all of the messaging, is redirected to our website, and you can easily share that with your networks and have all of our content up to date. And that's just the easiest, quickest way to get it out to your network, so that if you're wanting to send out things to your network, the messaging is the same, as opposed to waiting for some type of an integrated platform.
Yeah, but I love both. It's a both and. And I think a badge and a visual ID of the Georgians for the Arts logo on everybody's website will be hot stuff. That's going to be awesome.
So let me say, embarrassingly, until a year ago, Macon Arts Alliance didn't have an advocacy tab on our website. I don't know why. We do it, always do it. So I shamelessly went to Augusta's website, our arts organization's website. They have a fabulous advocacy tab, and I just sort of did what they did. You're welcome to go to maconartsalliance.org and look under programs and advocacy. And I have a link to Georgians for the Arts and Americans for the Arts. And I think that's a great thing for, in fact, it might even be under support. Like, how can you support us other than just donations? You can advocate. And I think everybody, all organizations should have a link on their website telling their supporters how to advocate. That's the easy way. I love the interactive. I think if that can happen, that takes it another step and it's even better.
Yeah.
And
One of the things I mentioned that, sorry, Myrna.
I just want to thank her for her suggestion and say that this is what we're all about. We need you to give us feedback, suggestions, ideas, jump in both feet, because we cannot do it alone. So keep those ideas coming. This was a great one.
Absolutely.
One of the things I mentioned up front being a top priority is the generation of quality content. Right now, we don't have enough quality content to make up a regularly distributed newsletter. However, if there are reports that come in from the four corners of the state, if there are opportunities that should be shared, within a region, Send them along. We'll put you on here as a contributor of content. It will eventually be automatically sent out on probably a bi-weekly basis. Weekly is just too much for anybody, I think. But that way, you know, we can get what you're doing out beyond your own backyard. So if you have articles, if you have content that you think is going to be of interest outside of your backyard, opportunities that are going to be of interest outside of your backyard, let's get you tapped into it so that you can help generate that message that we can help distribute. Okay. If there is nothing else, then thank you all for attending today. We are 1 minute early. Wow, I'm happy with that. We will see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock, a couple hours tomorrow. Like I said, it's going to be jam-packed. Go off now, tell your friends, wow, I just attended a great session. Sorry you missed it, but they have another one tomorrow. Come join me. That's all we ask. Bring a friend, bring a friend. Have a great day. Go whoever you're rooting for. Okay. Bye all.
Thank you.
Chiefs, go Chiefs.
Bye.